Number one is blocking out focus time on your calendar. It seems like it's a really simple thing to do. It seems pretty obvious. Um, yeah, I know it sounds a little too forward, too. Like sometimes the message for leaders tends to be to have an open door policy. You should always be available to your team to solve problems, answer questions, et cetera, et cetera. And yes, to a large degree, that is very true. You want to be as available as you can be, but that's a fine balance. You often need time to think deeply about your strategy and what your team should be working on. You need a block of time to hammer out a slide deck for a company update. You need
Mhm.
time to write specifications for your team. Going into planning with unwritten specs is definitely not a good thing to do, right?
No, no, thank you. Do not do
So,
that.
yeah, it's a bad thing. So you need focus time to knock that type of work out. And in the book Deep Work by Cal Newport, they talk about this a lot. And it turns out it's not the only book where they talk about this. Neri Hall talks about this in Indistractable. I think, Ira, you mentioned Sheryl Sandberg talks about this in her book as well, right? So they talk about this a lot. And the solution they suggest, which I use personally, is blocking the focus time on your calendar. There's nothing tricky about it. You just put it on your calendar, and that's that. And think about how much time you need in those blocks. So, if you're writing specs, for example, you might need an hour or two. If you're answering email, maybe you need like 30 minutes at a time. If you're going to be thinking about how to craft an offsite for the whole team, you need 2 to 3 hours to figure that out. There really is nothing tricky about it. You think about how much time you need in those blocks, and then you just slap it on Google Calendar or wherever you're using for your calendar. I didn't used to do this for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. I didn't want the team to feel like they didn't have access to me. But once I started doing this, it made a huge difference in what I was able to complete for the team on time with the needed level of detail. Ira, you started doing this recently, right?
Yeah, and I
What'd you
get
think?
I get the guilt feeling. I know that it feels kind of guilty, but a successful, unstressed PM is an effective PM, and you need to find kind of a balance to actually do the work, so that you can unblock people, so that you're ready to present your team's hard work in a clear, articulate way. Those things take time. And so making a plan for how you're going to use your focus block is also very, very important.
100%. Now, things come up. So sometimes you're going to have to remove this block or move it around, and that's okay. It's on your calendar now, and that's a commitment already. So that's good. Just move it around or look for the next spot for time and have a plan for the time. If you spend the whole time on YouTube watching us as much as we love that you're watching us,
Yeah.
that's not good either. Have a plan. Does that all make sense?
Yes, and I love how simple it is. It's really just communicating to the team and your stakeholders that you need the time on a surface everyone can see, which is your calendar. I've also seen Slack status updaters that like tell people when you're in focus time. So, and don't be afraid to like silence your notifications during focus time. That's the whole point. Um, they're it's helpful when you pair them together. If you get a ping during focus time, like if you want to reply, you can, but you don't have to. And that's the beauty of the focus block. You use it for whatever your high value task is. And then you approach the rest of the tasks, which generally most of the time, like if someone asks me something on Slack when I'm in focus time, it doesn't need to be answered right away. So I kind of use that as a buffer, like, okay, like I can get to this later. I think there is a calendar app you can use called Clockwise, which will actually like move meetings around to protect your focus time, which is really, really key. And there's a free version you can use if you don't feel comfortable blocking out your calendar on your own.
Those are totally great. One hang up I've had with those is that often I block the spaces out of office. So people can't book over it unless they ask me to move it. So sometimes these status bots will say that I'm constantly out of office, which isn't really true, nor is it a good look. So you just have to be careful with that.
Yeah, true. It's a good hack suggestion. What do we have next?